process of fusion of an egg and a sperm is known as fertilization or conception. That occurs usually within 1 day of ovulation. To understand this process, let's start with the maturation of egg, or ovum, that is present in the ovary. Well, in case you don't remember the anatomy of female reproductive tract, this is vagina. Here is the cervix, the uterus, and the 2 ovaries. And these tube-like structures on both sides are the fallopian tubes. Different parts of the fallopian tubes include isthmus, ampullae, infundibulum, and fimbriae. Now, here is a closer view of ovary. You can see the developing follicle here. Now at this stage, ovum is known as primary oocyte. That is diploid with 23 pairs of chromosomes. You can see it as the yellow structure in the follicle. Now, what happens to this primary oocyte is that, just before its release from the ovarian follicle, its nucleus undergoes meiosis and ends up giving half of its chromosomes to the first polar body formed. That is expelled out of the nucleus. So, this primary oocyte that had 23 pairs of chromosomes in total has now actually become a secondary oocyte with 23 chromosomes in total. You can see the closer view of secondary lymphocyte here. And this one is the first polar body. The ovum, along with 100 or more attached granulosa cells, is expelled directly into the peritoneal cavity by the process called ovulation. And of course, it is the burst follicle that is left behind in the ovary after ovulation, which is now called corpus luteum. Anyways, the ovum after ovulation now enters the fimbriated end of one of the fallopian tubes, also called as uterine tubes or oviduct. I am not showing here visually, but as the inner surfaces of these fimbriated tentacles are lined with ciliated epithelium, and the cilia are activated by estrogen from the ovaries, which causes the cilia to beat toward the opening, or ostium, of the involved fallopian tube. This ostium is present somewhat here. This causes the fluid to flow towards the ostium, causing the ovum to enter the fallopian tube. And then it travels to the ampulla, where the fertilization will occur. This is because it is not possible for an unfertilized egg to cover 72 hours' journey to the uterus. As I already mentioned, that an unfertilized egg can survive for a maximum of 24 hours. Now, as for the sperm, during intercourse, male ejaculates semen into the vagina of female. This semen carries as many as hundreds of millions of sperms into vagina. Out of these sperms, millions are not able to survive in the acidic pH of vagina. That is almost 3.8. While millions of them are prevented from entering uterus by the thick mucus of the cervix. Out of those that manage to enter uterus, thousands are destroyed by phagocytic uterine leukocytes. As a result, only precious few thousand make their way to the ampullae of the fallopian tube, the site where they could find the ovum. Sperms cover all this journey, from vagina to the ovarian end of the fallopian tube within 30 to 60 minutes. And this movement of sperm is actually facilitated by the antiperistaltic contractions of uterine muscles that are actually induced by the oxytocin. You know, a hormone secreted by the posterior pituitary by neuroendocrine reflex during sexual intercourse. These contractions are also facilitated by prostaglandin PGE2 present in male seminal fluid. Well, Even out of these precious few thousand sperms entering the fallopian tube, only one sperm is lucky enough to fertilize the ovum. If fertilization does not occur, a sperm can survive in a female reproductive tract for a maximum of 5 days after ejaculation, while an unfertilized ovum can only survive for up to 24 hours after ovulation, though it is only the one lucky sperm that fertilizes the egg. But many other sperms are kind enough to make this fertilization possible for it. Yes, a team of sperm is helping out to make the fertilization possible. I'll explain this in a while. Well, during the journey of sperm, fluids in the female reproductive tract prepare it for fertilization through a process called capacitation, or priming. The fluids improve the motility of the spermatozoa. Not only this, but they are also involved in remodeling of the lipids and glycoproteins of the plasma membrane of sperm, thinning the membrane in such a way that will help facilitate the release of the lysosomal enzymes needed for the penetration into the ovum. Word capacitation is from capacity. As sperms undergo this process, in order to have the capacity to fertilize the ovum, if they reach the oocyte before capacitation is complete, they will be unable to penetrate the oocyte's thick outer layer of cells. Let's have a closer view of an ovum to understand it more clearly. The secondary oocyte is surrounded by two protective layers, corona radiata and zona pellucida. Corona radiata is an outer layer of follicular cells, or granulosa cells, that form around a developing oocyte in the ovary and remain with it upon ovulation. Now, the word pellucida is from the word pellucid. That means transparent. So, the zona pellucida is a transparent but thick glycoprotein membrane that surrounds the cell's plasma membrane. Here, you can see the first polar body, and here is the nucleus. Now, when sperm encounters the secondary oocyte in the ampullae, it streams towards the oocyte in response to chemical attractants released by the cells of the corona radiata. But to reach the oocyte itself, the sperm must penetrate the two protective layers. The sperm first burrow through the cells of the corona radiata. Then, upon contact with the zona pellucida, the sperm bind the glycoprotein ZP3. That acts as a sperm receptor. This initiates a process called the acrosomal reaction. The acrosome is a body attached to the sperm head and contains proteolytic enzymes such as hyaluronidase and acrosome, and the process of release of these enzymes from acrosomes is called acrosomal reaction. It is not only the winning sperm that undergoes acrosomal reaction. Rather, thousands of sperms are carrying out this process to clear the path through zona pellucida. As a result of the efforts of multiple sperm, a path is created through zona pellucida to allow a single sperm to penetrate. This is why men with very low sperm counts are known as subfertile. Now the head of a sperm enters the oocyte. Well, it is necessary to prevent polyspermy, which is the penetration of more than one sperm, because that would result in overload of genetic material, which is of course abnormal. So, to block the entry of another sperm into oocyte, there are two mechanisms. These are the fast block, which is the electrical barrier, and the slow block, which is in fact a mechanical barrier. Now the fast block involves a near instantaneous change in sodium ion permeability upon binding of the first sperm, depolarizes the oocyte plasma membrane, and thus prevents the fusion of additional sperm cells. The fast block sets in almost immediately and lasts for about a minute, during which time an influx of calcium ions following sperm penetration triggers the second mechanism, the slow block. Now the slow block is also known as the cortical reaction. What happens here is that the cortical granules that lie immediately below the oocyte plasma membrane fuse with the membrane and release zonal inhibiting proteins and mucopolysaccharides into the space between the plasma membrane and the zona pellucida. Zonal inhibiting proteins cause the release of any other attached sperm and destroy the oocyte's sperm receptors, thus preventing any more sperm from binding. The mucopolysaccharides then coat the nascent zygote in an impenetrable barrier. That, together with hardened zona pellucida, is called a fertilization membrane. Now, let's zoom into the next step here. When sperm enters the ovum, sperm head swells to form a male pronucleus with 23 chromosomes, which include 22 autosomes and one sex chromosome, either X or Y chromosome. This male pronucleus is released into the ovum as its tail degenerates and falls away. At the same time, ovum, which was in the secondary oocyte stage of development, divides again to form the mature ovum, plus a second polar body that is expelled. Nucleus of matured ovum becomes female pronucleus with 23 chromosomes, which includes 22 autosomes and one sex chromosome, called X chromosome. Then, 23 chromosomes of the sperm and 23 chromosomes of ovum arrange themselves to reform the 23 pairs of chromosomes. That means 46 chromosomes in total in the fertilized ovum, or what we call a zygote. Well, usually, a woman releases a single egg during an ovulation cycle, but in few cases, 2 eggs are released, and both are fertilized by 2 different sperms. 2 zygotes form, implant and develop, as a result leading to the birth of fraternal twins, or dizygotic twins, with 2 placenta. Since there are 2 eggs and 2 sperms, the twins born are not identical. While, on the other hand, sometimes even a single egg and a sperm can form a zygote that can divide into 2 separate offspring during early development, resulting in the birth of identical or monozygotic twins. Mostly, it splits at the blastocyst stage, resulting in the twins sharing a common placenta and a chorionic cavity. But it can also split at 2-cell stage, having individual placenta. You will be more clear about these stages I'm talking about in the very next part of the video. So, that was about fertilization. I hope you are now clear about the process of fertilization, as we have discussed it in much detail. For a quick recap, hundreds of millions of sperms enter the vagina during intercourse, but only few thousand are able to bear the drastic conditions and reach uterus. Few manage to reach oocyte in the ampullae of fallopian tube, and only one is lucky enough to fertilize the egg. Many sperms have role in clearing the path through Zona Glomerulosa by releasing enzymes from the acrosome. As soon as one of the sperm penetrates its head into the oocyte, series of changes occur to prevent any other sperm from penetrating. Head of the sperm swells to form male pronucleus, while secondary oocyte divides to form mature ovum, and expel, a second polar body. Mature ovum has a female pronucleus that fuses with male pronucleus, having 23 chromosomes each, to form a zygote with 46 chromosomes in total. And that's when the fertilization is complete.
Explore our extensive library of over 1,800 video lectures to learn about a wide range of topics. Only on sqadia.com.